Walk into any modern home and inspect the rafters above your head. Chances are, in just a few decades, those timbers could be compromised by rot, decay, or fungal growth. Now step into a medieval hall or a Depression-era farmhouse, and you'll notice that roof beams that have been exposed to rain, snow, and storms for centuries are still solid, still holding weight. The difference isn't luck or rare materials. It's a simple yet critical principle of moisture management that modern builders have largely forgotten. Today, we're uncovering the forgotten roof moisture rule that could save your rafters from decay, and how you can apply it to extend the life of your timber. Make sure to subscribe to the channel, because this knowledge can literally protect your roof. The first part of this rule is understanding the enemy. Wood doesn't rot simply because it gets wet. Rot occurs when moisture remains trapped inside the fibers long enough for fungi to colonize. Medieval builders intuitively understood this. They expected timber to get wet, but they designed structures to ensure that wetness never lingered. Modern construction, by contrast, often seals roofs with membranes and coatings, trapping moisture inside and creating ideal conditions for decay. Recognizing that moisture management is more important than water exclusion is the first step toward preventing rot. Now, the next aspect of the rule involves timber selection and preparation. Ancient builders, you see, would choose slow-grown, dense hardwoods or conifers with tight grain and a high resin content. These particular qualities allowed the wood to absorb moisture without compromising its strength, which is rather clever, really. Timber was actually felled in winter when sap was low, which reduced the internal sugars that can feed fungi. Beams were then air-seasoned for months or even years, gradually lowering the moisture content and relieving internal stress. Quite a patient process, if you ask me. Modern lumber, on the other hand, is typically fast-grown, kiln-dried quickly, and installed immediately. While that's certainly convenient, it does lack the density and resilience of historic timbers, making it more prone to absorbing moisture during wet seasons. Honestly, using denser, slow-grown timber and giving it time to acclimate to your environment is a key step modern builders can adopt. Roof design was, another critical component. Medieval roofs were steeply pitched, shedding snow and rain before water could linger. Eaves were extended to prevent drip onto walls or joints, and roof cavities were intentionally ventilated. Modern roofs often feature shallow pitches, tight ceiling, and minimal ventilation, which unfortunately traps moisture against structural timber. Increasing roof pitch where possible, adding overhangs, and ensuring continuous airflow along the rafters allows moisture to escape naturally, just as it did in historic buildings. The third piece of the moisture rule involves surface protection. You see, medieval builders didn't rely on impermeable coatings that trap water. Instead, they applied pine tar, light charring, or oil-based finishes that repelled liquid water while still allowing timber to breathe. This combination of repellency and permeability allowed wet wood to dry quickly, preventing decay before it began. Nowadays, plastic sealants and paint create a false sense of security. Once moisture breaches these layers, the timber is trapped in a damp, rotting environment. Using breathable water-repellent finishes on exposed rafters preserves the same principle applied by ancient builders. Joinery and load distribution also played a vital role in keeping moisture from causing rot. Beams were connected with pegged or interlocking joints that allowed movement as wood expanded and contracted with humidity changes. Moisture-induced swelling and shrinking didn't concentrate stress at fasteners, which actually reduced cracks where water could settle. Modern construction, however, often relies on nails or screws that penetrate timber quite rigidly, creating these tiny entry points for moisture and stress fractures that, accelerate decay. So, when repairing or constructing roofs, it's wise to consider allowing movement in joints and, if possible, avoiding unnecessary metal fasteners. Another often overlooked element is passive inspection and maintenance. Ancient builders, you see, understood that timber is a living material even after it's cut. Regular checks allowed them to detect minor moisture intrusion early on, so they could reinforce or replace sections before rot had a chance to take hold. These days, modern homeowners, they rarely inspect their rafters until visible damage actually appears, and by that point decay is often well underway. Incorporating routine inspections, especially after storms or heavy snow, really aligns with the ancient principle of continuous moisture management. Applying this forgotten rule doesn't, require a full medieval rebuild. To start, choose dense timber, season it properly, and protect it with breathable finishes. Make sure your roof is pitched so it sheds water efficiently, and create passive airflow along rafters and cavities. Design your joinery to allow for slight movement rather than rigid connections. And finally, inspect your roof regularly to catch moisture intrusion before it turns into structural rot. Even just implementing one or two of these strategies can honestly make a big difference and significantly extend the life of your roof. The brilliance of this principle really lies in its simplicity. Moisture doesn't need to be fought with chemicals or membranes. It simply needs to be managed, shed, ventilated, and allowed to move naturally through the structure. Medieval and historic builders understood this almost intuitively, and their roofs, they stand as a testament to that knowledge. If this guide has given you a fresh way to think about timber, moisture, and roof longevity, do consider subscribing to the channel and perhaps share this episode with someone who wants to stop rot before it starts. Relic Logic exists to uncover the ancient wisdom that still works today, teaching us to build smarter, stronger, and longer-lasting roofs by following principles proven over centuries.